Guess what I said? Man, I don't want to talk to no more. I'm gonna sit down and talk to her. If Jay Prince want to sit down and talk to me, I'm bringing the FBI and the police.
I never will. I don't know what type of town let one mother run something. That's a weak town. Don't know one mother run nothing in Dallas nor Fort Worth.
No wonder they mob tied. No wonder everybody got to check in, y'all. Now I'm checking in with the police department. Police department told me, hey man, you got a problem with Mr. James Prince. Austin, we hear you got a problem with James Prince. Like a bunch of to me. I see why.
But he don't have a mob. And he not a mob.
You know, quote unquote celebrities checking in and things like that. I feel like a lot of people when
make
you go
that white boy check in. You make the make the white boy motorcycle game.
Homie, nah, Houston is a player town, homie. Long as you don't check in to Jay Prince Jr. Jay Prince Jr., everything happened around him. Boy, not the city of Houston.
When Charleston White locks in on somebody, it never stops at talk. It turns into a full-blown storm with real names caught in the crossfire. And this time, his radar's locked on Houston's self-proclaimed royal family. Jay Prince Sr. and Jay Prince Jr., what kicked off as just a postponed youth event, suddenly blew up into something way bigger. Next thing you know, whispers started flying about political pressure, power moves, and backdoor control shaking the whole city. Charleston jumped online, puffed his chest out, and said, I swear to God, I just got that call, straight from the mayor's office in the gang unit. Then he dropped that half-censored, half-deadly line that stopped every timeline cold. That's when the real questions started echoing. Is Charleston White finally exposing what everyone else is too scared to even whisper, or is he digging himself a grave too deep to climb out of? He stood firm, swearing the call was real, the pressure was real, and the fear was real, just not his. Charleston made it clear he ain't backing down. He ain't silencing himself, and he damn sure ain't bowing down to no powerful last name out of Houston.
Jay Prince really don't run Houston. He's been a mythical figure in the entertainment hip hop culture world, but in the streets, in the prison systems, he's not recognized.
I got the call from the mayor's office, from the gang unit. He said again, voice sharp like a blade. They scared, and you know what I told them? Y'all can suck my. That's when he went for the jugular, the myth itself. Because in Charleston's words, yeah, Jay Prince Sr. might be a legend in hip-hop, but that don't mean he runs Houston, not the streets
of Houston, saying, hey, we hear there's some issues with Charleston White and James Prince. Don't you think it's a little too early to have this conflict? She said, well, listen, I'm not stopping my event. I ain't stopping my event. I got a black male that's scared of James Prince. I bet if it was a white person, they wouldn't be scared of rap without records. I bet they got a black police chief. You better keep jumping on. You better keep jumping. Cause one of you ESG. I'm telling mob ties, rap a lot. Y'all can suck my. Do y'all hear that woman's voice? Do y'all hear the pain in that woman's voice? Now you knowing this was a goddamn kids event for over a month. But because Jay Prince, because I refused to sit down with you, y'all called my manager and I told you sitting down.
And definitely not the system. Charleston's carved out his lane as a one-man crazy enough to say the quiet part out loud. To him, this ain't entertainment. This is war. His not chasing clicks or trying to trend for a weekend. His swinging at a story that's been guarded by power and fear for years. And just like that, the whole atmosphere around him shifted overnight. To his followers, he sounded like a whistleblower finally taking on the untouchables. But to his critics, he looked like a reckless fire starter daring men with real power to pull his card. Either way, the second he claimed city officials were calling his phone and promised he'd never fold, the noise hit a whole new level. Charleston wanted everybody to see this wasn't some mix-up about scheduling. This was about principle. The event didn't collapse because of logistics. It collapsed because Charleston refused to bow down. And that refusal? That's the spark that set the whole fire off. But the real shock wasn't the cancellation. It was what he said it revealed. Charleston didn't just question power. He went straight for its roots. In his words, Jay Prince don't run Houston. He stripped a legend down to a myth, saying that name might open doors in the music industry, but it don't carry weight in the streets or behind bars, where respect is earned, not inherited. That statement wasn't built to go viral. It was built to break illusions.
How weak mob ties is. There's no such thing as a mob ties. It's a fictitious name. They're not a mob. Mob ties is like the white boy from Malibu Most Wanted. Jay Prince Jr. and his son, they like the Malibu from Most Wanted. They're not no real gangsters.
Charleston laid it out raw when he calls out the princes. It ain't for clout, it's war. And is not taking one step back. His not whispering from a safe distance. His standing dead center in the fire, saying loud and clear that fame don't equal command. He reminded the world exactly who he is, Texas-born, shaped by struggle, and hardened by the system. He flipped his pain into purpose, preaching discipline in one breath and destroying fake code in the next. He'll preach accountability with his chest out, then torch the whole check-in culture like it's nothing. To him, the idea that a last name automatically earns respect is the biggest lie in the game. That's why his voice slices through all the noise, because he says what everyone else dodges. In Charleston's eyes, the Prince family's legacy might still echo loud, but the receipts just don't match the legend. He said, "Mob ties? Man, that sound like a movie title, not a movement." To Charleston, that name ain't power, it's packaging. A slick, marketable brand that sells fear more than it commands it, and is not sugarcoating a thing. He laughed at the whole image like it was cosplay for the culture, a costume people wear until someone actually checks the credentials. Then he hit harder, saying the real issue isn't just the name itself, it's how folks let labels like that dictate what power even means. That's when the fuse really caught flame.
I don't know what type of town let one run something. That's a weak town. Don't know one motherfucker run nothing in Dallas nor Fort Worth. And surely not no entertainment like a Jay Prince kind of guy.
Yeah.
Jay Prince really don't run Houston. He's been a mythical figure in the entertainment hip hop culture world, but in the streets, in the prison systems, he's not recognized and identified as a mob boss. He's a
Because in Houston, mocking mob ties isn't comedy, it's blasphemy. That phrase carries weight, fear, and automatic reverence. But Charleston stripped it bare, live on camera, calling it a PR slogan for fear, tough talk with no muscle behind it. That was his shot fired, a message that street credibility has turned into a logo, and the logo done started believing its own lie. So when Charleston said there's no mob ties, he wasn't denying, he was defying. He was saying the ones parading behind that phrase are selling illusions, not leadership. And the internet? It went wild. Clips of him laughing and calling it a marketing trick took over every feed, sparking chaos across timelines. Some praised him for exposing fake power. Others said he was begging for smoke he couldn't handle. But that's a Charleston White blueprint. Say what no one else will, flip the table, and make the whole room choose sides. And this time, he wasn't just poking the bear. He kicked the entire cage wide open. Charleston's turned the whole check-in culture into pure performance art. His saying, if you want fear, go earn it, don't invoice it. That's why he keeps repeating the same lines, not because he's running out of material, but because he's breaking down an illusion that's been polished for decades. Every time he says Jay Prince doesn't run Houston, it's another swing of the hammer at a mythology people treat like gospel. To Charleston, this isn't rebellion, it's correction. He paints the princes as symbols of a system that worships reputation over receipts. Their reach, he claims, stretches from boardrooms to police back channels, not from power, but from fear that's gone unchecked for years. So when he mocks mob ties, it's not for laughs, it's a press on the city's most sacred nerve. It's his way of daring people to question the untouchables, the names that move silently but control loudly. That's why his defiance hits so hard. His not playing politics or looking for peace. His yanking the mask off power and making everyone stare. Charleston swears the Houston mayor's office and gang unit called him, not to threaten, but to tread carefully. They scared of him, he said, and that line flipped the whole script. Suddenly, this wasn't comedy or clout chasing. It was about fear itself, who feels it, who feeds it, and who profits from keeping it alive. He turned that call into Exhibit A, proof that respect and intimidation are often just the same lie in different packaging. Charleston made it clear when he said, "I check in with the police. It wasn't surrender, it was satire." He was mocking the system that pretends checking in equals safety, when in reality, it's just submission with better PR. And he refuses to whisper. Charleston walks that line like it's burning under his feet. He doubles down, saying Jay Prince doesn't run Houston, not the streets, not the system, not the soul of the people. He calls the mogul's rep a fairy tale, born in hip-hop mythology, not reality. But then he flips it, admitting that myth alone still bends phones, shifts police attention, and stops events in their tracks. It's intentional contradiction, showing how even the ghost of power can still make men flinch. He keeps hammering that "I just got the cold line" like a hook in a rap song, turning rumor into rhythm. To him, that call wasn't concern, it was control. He paints the picture vividly. Speak on the wrong name, and the echo that hits back don't come from fans. It comes from the walls of power. This isn't a feud, it's a collision. His truth, head on, with a system that thrives on whispers and fear. And Charleston's made it clear, no private meetings, no backroom peace deals, no soft apologies. Just fire meeting pressure. He swears the city didn't cancel his youth event over safety. They did it to silence him. So he fought back the only way he knows, with noise. He called names, torched the myth, and dared Houston to prove him wrong. That's when talk turned to trouble. His mentorship event for kids, planned for over a month, suddenly froze. Calls bounced between the mayor's office and community leaders, all claiming Charleston brings conflict. He called it exactly what it was, a power move disguised as protection, dragging children into grown folk politics. And he didn't take that quietly. He went live, furious, saying he wasn't sitting down, he wasn't apologizing, and he damn sure wasn't changing his tone. He said organizers got spooked by outside pressure. They scared a rapper lot. And if checking in was mandatory, he'd do it with the police, not with a clique. Then came that bombshell moment, the same half-censored line, sharp and deliberate. He made it clear he'd rather go down swinging than bow to a name he don't respect. That's when the mentorship angle blew the whole thing open. Charleston said everybody knew the event was for kids, and they still turned to political just because he wouldn't kiss the ring. He claimed a woman even contacted officials with a cold-blooded warning. If he speaks, we can hurt him at a kids' event. That's where Charleston drew his final line, saying real power protects children. It doesn't use them as pawns. Then came the proof, screenshots, timestamps, DMs flashing across his lie like evidence in court. He said this wasn't gossip. This was a machine working in daylight. And then came the moment that split the internet in half. On live stream, Charleston flashed a weapon, not as a threat, but as a statement. His supporters called it self-defense. His critics called it a meltdown waiting to happen. Either way, the energy shifted overnight. What started as a local standoff turned into a national firestorm. Timelines flooded, talk shows jumped in, and suddenly it wasn't just a Houston issue anymore. It was a culture-wide wake-up call. Charleston said the mayor's office was getting bombarded with calls. And when Miss Pat promised to keep the event going without him, that didn't calm him down. It confirmed everything. To him, that was proof the pressure was real, just dressed up as concern. He called it a test. We fold for access or stand tall in fallout. He chose the second. Then came the silence. No word from Jay Prince Sr., no reaction from Jay Prince Jr. Not a post, not a quote, not a whisper. That quiet hit louder than a diss track. Some said it was power. Others called it strategy. Either way, Charleston's voice was left echoing, unanswered, unstoppable, and feeding the flames. Houston split right down the middle. City figures brushed him off as a loud provocateur chasing his next viral clip. But even they couldn't shake the whisper that maybe, just maybe, there was truth buried in the chaos. That truth and the madness idea kept the story alive long after it should have died. The officials didn't help. Charleston's claims about police calls and city pressure were never confirmed or denied, sitting in that gray zone where rumors grow legs. He pointed to that silence and said, "See? That's proof." Critics fired back, saying silence isn't guilt. But the tension didn't fade. It spread. Every clip, every stream. Every headline just stretched the line tighter. The internet turned into a courtroom overnight. One side called him reckless, a man poking an empire with Wi-Fi and a pistol, dragging kids' events into gangster politics. The other side crowned him a truth-teller, the one man calling out how check-in culture turned respect into a toll booth. It became silence versus volume. He yelled into the void, and the void refused to answer. That imbalance forced people to pick sides. Do you respect the quiet because real power doesn't argue, or do you question it because real truth doesn't hide? Each day of no reply made Charleston look either bolder or more alone. Then he dug deeper. He dragged history into the chat, old fights, sealed files, and familiar faces. He brought up the Trey and Zedra altercation, saying it was a perfect example, a public fight where police moved like the rules bent around certain names. He asked why it all seemed so careful, so protected. Then he took it further, asking how people outside law enforcement were getting their hands on case files the public can't even see. He called at the real clue. If they can pull folders regular folks can't touch, that's not myth, that's muscle. From there, Charleston zoomed out and lit up the check-in culture again. He said, if the code's real, it should hit everybody the same, rappers, influencers, bikers, whoever. But it doesn't. It only lands where it's easy and disappears where money lives. In his eyes, that's not respect, that's elective power. He brought up the names hip-hop never escapes, FBG Duck, King Von, and asked why the outrage always dies when it's inconvenient. He said mothers are still waiting for apologies that'll never come while people clap to songs about their sons' deaths. That's a line that splits his audience in two. Supporters say Charleston forces the uncomfortable conversations everyone else avoids. Critics say he's exploiting pain for clicks, playing with fire on live. But even then, he never blinked. He doubled down, saying HPD's too cozy with Rap-A-Lot, and even the feds can't break through. Everybody knows. He said, you can watch it happen on camera, and nobody moves. To him, that's the point. Real influence doesn't have to threaten you. It just needs you to stay quiet. Charleston repeats that line like a drumbeat because he knows repetition cracks illusions. This is a collision, legacy versus loud truth. The princes get treated like a civic institution, power that stretches from studio lights to City Hall, and Charleston refuses to treat any of it like scripture. He says their aura was built for rooms where image wins a coin toss, and is here to flip that coin and show the scratches. To him, the only test that matters is whether a name holds weight in the streets, or just at the award shows. He said, mob ties? Man, that sounds like a movie title, not a movement. To him, the name is branding, slick, profitable, and hollow, and is not shy about saying it. Charleston marked the image like it was cosplay for the culture, the kind of myth that sounds powerful until somebody actually checks the credentials. He doubled down, saying the problem isn't just a name, it's how people let names like that define power. That's where the fuse really hit the gas. Because mocking mob ties isn't just comedy, it's blasphemy in Houston circles. It's the one phrase that commands automatic reverence, and Charleston stripped it bare on camera. He called it a PR slogan for fear, something that sounds tough but folds under pressure. That was his warning shot, that street credibility has turned into a brand, and the brand has started to believe its own hype. So when Charleston said there's no mob ties, it wasn't denial, it was defiance. He was saying that the people running around behind those words are selling illusions, not leadership. And the internet, it ate that up. Clips of him laughing while calling it a marketing trick started flooding feeds. And just like that, the conversation split wide open. Some said he was exposing fake power. Others said he was begging for a war he couldn't win. But that's the Charleston White formula. Say the unsayable, shake the table, and let the room decide who's telling the truth. And this time, he wasn't just poking the bear. He was kicking the whole cage open. He bangs, "Oh, I just got the call" line over and over, turning an anecdote into an anthem. If your voice targets the wrong names, the noise you hear back isn't just trolls. It's numbers you don't dial. Charleston frames this as a collision with a network that doesn't argue on podcasts. It moves in back channels. He vows no private sit-downs, no soft apologies, no quiet handshakes. His choosing volume over whispers. That posture forces a yes or no. Is mob ties muscle or marketing dressed up as muscle? Then he names names and paints the receipts. The kids' mentorship event he'd been locked into for weeks froze, not because of logistics, but because phones lit up and doors shut. He says a call came from the mayor's office in the gang unit, not a venue manager, and that's Exhibit A to him. It proved the conversation isn't about a flyer. It's about who can make a phone call to pull a show. He turned a kid's day into a battlefield to prove the point. If power can shut a room, what does that say about who controls access? When organizers promised to keep the event, Charleston smelled a laundering, concern dressed as pressure, and he refused the deal. He said a woman told officials, if he speaks, we can hurt him at a kid's event. And that was a line he drew in permanent ink. That's when he flashed a weapon on stream, a move supporters called standing ground and critics called reckless. Either way, the temperature changed. A local scuffle became national headlines, timelines filled up, and radio shows circled like sharks. The silence from the princes did more work than any rebuttal could. No posts, no quotes. That quiet turned into a megaphone for Charleston's version. People chose sides. Some called the silence power. Real bosses don't engage. Others said the quiet is convenient, because you can't clip a contradiction if you never speak. That gray area, neither confirmed nor denied, is where rumors grow legs, and Charleston fed that loop with patterns, paperwork, and history. He pulled up past incidents and asked the hard question, who gets a pass, and who gets left outside? Strip away the noise and you land on 3 words: power, risk, narrative. Charleston's betting sunlight beats backroom certainty. Naming names stacks risk. Supporters call it courage. Critics call it chaos. The other side's silence is a flex for some, cowardice for others. This isn't just a flyer pulled off a wall. It's a map of influence under the city, touching money, access, and who gets the last word when doors close. So what's next? Silence that holds, a clean rebuttal with signatures and timestamps, or the story fading because power prefers shadows. Either way, the choice will tell us what kind of city Houston really wants to be. You only strike a nerve when you hit the truth, so deep it can't be ignored. That's exactly what happened, and now they got to come back swinging. These guys are supposed to be tough, right? When they feel disrespected, they feel like they got to pull up and prove a point. But see the trap there? Pulling up only proves Charleston's thesis, that you settle things with violence, and that proves you're hollow. Violence ain't the only way to settle things. Words, talk, negotiation. Those things matter and de-escalate. These circles aren't used to someone on the internet checking them and exposing everything they built their rep on. That blindsides them. They don't know how to handle that because their usual move was to stamp out opposition quick. Now the crowd's rallying behind Charleston, and that stings. It hits deep when your own people don't side with you. Charleston's point about the princes working with police? He said it bluntly. These guys move like they are tied to the feds. It's alleged, sure, but to him it makes sense when things slide under radar. Think about Takeoff at that dice game. In another city, that'd be a RICO sweep. In New York, they'd have flipped the script and locked down every link. That's a contrast is pointing at different cities, different rules. He called Houston weak for allowing that kind of power to run unchecked. He called the government, the police, the entire machine cowardly for letting certain names move without consequence. That's a scorching claim, but it's the engine of his argument. If influence can pull strings, then power isn't earned, it's purchased. And when that happens, the system protects itself, not the people. He said, mob ties? Man, that sounds like a movie title, not a movement. To him, the name is branding, slick, profitable, and hollow, and is not shy about saying it. Charleston mocked the image like it was cosplay for the culture, the kind of myth that sounds powerful until somebody actually checks the credentials. He doubled down, saying the problem isn't just a name, it's how people let names like that define power. That's where the fuse really hit the gas. Because mocking mob ties isn't just comedy, it's blasphemy in Houston circles. It's the one phrase that commands automatic reverence, and Charleston stripped it bare on camera. He called it a PR slogan for fear, something that sounds tough but folds under pressure. That was his warning shot, that street credibility has turned into a brand, and the brand has started to believe its own hype. So when Charleston said there's no mob ties, it wasn't denial, it was defiance. He was saying that the people running around behind those words are selling illusions, not leadership. And the internet, it ate that up. Clips of him laughing while calling it a marketing trick started flooding feeds, and just like that, the conversation split wide open. Some said he was exposing fake power. Others said he was begging for a war he couldn't win. But that's a Charleston white formula. Say the unsayable, shake the table, and let the room decide who's telling the truth. And this time, he wasn't just poking the bear. He was kicking the whole cage open. He bangs a "I just got the call" line over and over, turning an anecdote into an anthem. If your voice targets the wrong names, the noise you hear back isn't just trolls. It's numbers you don't dial. Charleston frames this as a collision with a network that doesn't argue on podcasts. It moves in back channels. He vows no private sit-downs, no soft apologies, no choir handshakes. His choosing volume over whispers. That posture forces a yes or no. Is mob ties muscle or marketing dress up as muscle? Then he names names and paints the receipts. The kid's mentorship event he'd been locked into for weeks froze, not because of logistics, but because phones lit up and doors shut. He says the call came from the mayor's office and the gang unit, not a venue manager, and that's Exhibit A. To him, it proves the conversation isn't about a flyer. It's about who can make a phone call to pull a show. He turned the kid's day into a battlefield to prove the point. If power can shut a room, what does that say about who controls access? When organizers promised to keep the event, Charleston smelled the laundering. Concern dressed as pressure, and he refused the deal. He said a woman told officials, if he speaks, we can hurt him at a kid's event. And that was a line he drew in permanent ink. Then the live stream moment made everything worse. He flashed a weapon, and the internet split clean. Some called it standing your ground. Others called it dangerous grandstanding. Either way, the vibe changed. Local noise turned national headlines. Radio shows picked it up. Timeline flooded. The princes stayed silent, and that silence worked like a megaphone for Charleston's story. No rebuttal, no counters, just a vacuum people filled with their own verdicts. Strip all the hype away, and it comes down to this: power, risk, narrative. Charleston's betting sunlight beats backroom deals. Naming names stacks risk, but it also forces a conversation. The other side's silence can be a flex or a dodge. Either way, it leaves space for doubt. So what now? Silence that holds, a clean rebuttal with timestamps, or the whole thing fade because power prefers shadows? That's a question Houston's gonna answer, whether it likes it or not. You understand? The second anybody in another city thought they were bigger than the system, they'd be gone. But in Houston, it feels like the people in power folded. I'm not talking about civilians. I'm talking about the folks in charge, the government, the mayor, the senators, the police. All cowards, no backbone, just letting one family move unchecked. That's what's wild. How does a city with that much pride move this soft? Look at Chicago. The PD over there might be rough, might be overwhelmed, but they still stand up. They don't let one crew act like they own the place. Philly? Please. That kind of power play would have been over before it started. In Philly, in New York, in Boston. Soon as someone starts talking like they run the whole city, they get checked immediately. Nobody's giving a free pass to that kind of arrogance. So how is Houston letting this rock? How is one last name calling shots in 2025 like it's the mob era? That's the question that keeps getting louder, because no other city would let that happen. Not on the East Coast, not in the Midwest. The idea that one family runs a show is embarrassing. It makes the people in charge look like spectators in their own house. And that's the core of Charleston's argument. It's not just about street control. It's about the system being complicit. When power won't police power, the rules disappear. The gangsters stop fearing consequence. The officials stop pretending they care. And the only people left playing fair are the ones getting played. That's the setup. A city where influence outranks accountability. So that's what it really comes down to with Houston. At some point, you just got to accept weakness when you see it. You can't force courage into people who are comfortable being controlled. They have to find that strength on their own, and clearly, they haven't. Charleston White called it out plain. Houston's problem isn't the noise, it's the silence. And no matter how many people call it embarrassing, the ones in power still won't move. He's not wrong about that Dallas and Fort Worth comparison either. Because let's be honest, if the Prince family tried that same play up north, they get checked quick. Dallas don't play those games. Fort Worth don't play those games. That kind of grip wouldn't even last a week. The fact that Houston lets it fly says everything. It's not about one family being strong. It's about everyone else being afraid to stand up. That's what makes it so sad. A whole city moving like they're scared of their own shadow. You can't build pride off that. You can't build respect off that. Charleston saying what most people won't admit. Houston turns soft while pretending to be tough. And until somebody breaks that cycle, they'll keep letting the same names pull the same strings while pretending it's culture. And I'll tell you this, where I'm from, that could never happen. My people don't fold like that. We'd rather fight to the last breath than bow down to one family acting like they own the block. That's not pride, that's principle. So yay, call it what it is, weakness dressed up as tradition. Because if the only way you can keep order is by fear, then maybe you never had power in the first place. Man, for real, I just want to take a second to thank everybody who's been rocking with me. The ones commenting, liking, sharing, showing up every single time. I see you all. The first commenters, the loyal ones, the people who never miss a drop, you are the reason this movement's actually turning into something real. This isn't just a channel anymore, it's a community, a mission, because what we're doing here is bigger than views. We're breaking people out of programs. We're waking folks up, the youth, the grown, even the elders who've been following the wrong light for too long. We're cutting through the noise, bringing truth where lies been living rent-free, and making sure these dark systems can't keep feeding off our minds and spirits. That's the real work. So to every single person who supported, who's helped spread this message, I mean this from the heart. You're part of something special. You're part of something that's shifting the culture one video at a time. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep pushing the truth forward. Because together, we're cleansing what's been corrupted. We're building something they can't silence.